Thank you.
A little up because this touch with this.
Okay, then we are speaking about the shear stress distribution during a fretting cycle, okay, for stick slip. Then okay, then you have that in mind. Then now also, this is a view of the shear stress. Now we can have a view of the sliding. Then now remember that at the border we have some sliding. That here this is sliding, here this is sliding, and in the center here it is sticking. Okay. Then if you plot from the center sliding along the x-axis, you will see something which is nil until here that will increase. Okay. This is typically this type of curve. Okay. Then here you have no sliding, and you have sliding at the border. Now, if you want to simulate wear, in fact, the wear will be proportional to the sliding because the energy dissipated depends on the sliding. Then this magnitude multiplied by the shear stress, which is the pressure times the friction coefficient. Okay, then you have to multiply this curve by something which is semi-elliptical, and then you will see that in this area, finally you will find something like that, not too different, and you can observe somewhere at within the contact, but close to the border of the contact. Then I said before this morning, wear can be interesting because it will provide you the optimum geometry of the surface. This is a cylinder on a flat surface. For this cylinder, there is no edge. In fact, it's straight. There is no corner. And this is the initial geometry. And typically, here, this is the final geometry. Then this is a simulation. You can see the load on the top. There is 200,000 cycles, which is very huge, but we do not perform 200,000 simulation because we use jump technique cycles. For example, here we impose a jump cycle of 10 cycles. But anyway, in elastic, for an elastic problem, in 3D, we can perform 20,000 cycles of wear. There is no problem. Because here it is also in a gross slip, then there is no coupling between tangential and normal effect. It's purely elastic. It can be very, very fast. And also the mesh maybe is not, okay, the mesh is quite coarse, 100 by 100, but just to give you an idea, you can have a mesh of 1000 by 1000 or more and perform wear simulation very, very quickly. Then you have the grid size. Okay, maybe this is a, okay, now this is a cut view of this result. Then this noise, maybe I need to remove this one. Then I will cut the cylinder along the x direction in the middle, okay, and I will also cut the cylinder along the y direction in the middle. And we will observe the pressure distribution and also the geometry, the initial and the wound geometry. Then these are in these plots. Then okay, maybe we can start by the bottom view. The bottom view is a pressure distribution. Then here you can see that at the beginning, the pressure distribution is this one. This is then the cylinder is going to you. Okay, and this is a classical Hertz distribution. But now this is not a 2D problem. This is a 3D problem. Then if you go at the edge of the cylinder, you will have peak of pressure. And you can see the peak of pressure in green. This is the initial geometry. you have very high peak of pressure. This is why I said that you should absolutely manage to modify the extremity of the cylinder. If it is straight, you will have peak of pressure and the life will be very, very short. But now, if you add some wear, what will happen? First, you can observe, then it depends on the number of cycles. This is after 200 cycles, it's almost the same as the initial geometry. After 10,000 cycles, you can see that there is some diminution of the maximum contact pressure here. And at the peak here, the peak is decreasing. And at the end, it will almost vanish. And of course, because when you integrate the pressure over the surface, you should keep the same load, because the load is constant here. We do not apply a displacement, we apply a load. In fact, the pressure, the maximum pressure diminish, and the contact area increase. Okay? Because in fact, at the end, you don't have in fact a cylinder on a flat surface. You have a cylinder with a flat surface due to wear. Then that diminishes the maximum contact pressure like that. And then if you observe the geometry, now this is the geometry, you can see that initially you have a cylinder like that, and because it is wearing, in fact this is a wear depth that you can find here. This is the difference here corresponds to this one. This is the wear scar, in fact. And you can see that this is in the middle, but also you have a lot of wear at the border of the contact, here, at the extremity of the cylinder. And the wear here is more pronounced than in the center. This is why you have at the end something which is rounded. Okay. And if you go like that at the infinity, you may have also a perfectly flat pressure distribution, in fact the optimum pressure distribution, and you will find again the logarithmic profile. Just for if you change the load, of course, it will change the profile. And here this is the wear geometry. Okay, is it clear? As I said yesterday or this morning, if you have a complex geometry, the wear solution will be the optimum geometry, in fact, and you can use that to optimize something. Okay, then now this is just an estimation of the error. When we vary the jump cycle number, okay, jump by 10 cycles, by 100. Here, this is not optimum because we fix the jump cycle, but normally you should do that automatically. As I said before, for example, if the algorithm converges very well, if the wear is less than 1 micrometer, you can multiply by the number to have 1 micrometer for each jump cycle. And also this is an idea of the computing time, but it has been done many years ago, and it's not very significant. But of course there is some effect on the grid size. And this size corresponds to 400 by 400, and correspond to 20,000 contact simulation, okay, which is a large number. Maybe a small detail. For those that are interested to simulate wear, there is two ways of doing that. You can do that cycle after cycle, a full cycle. For us, it is a way forward and back. But you can also simulate wear at each time step. Okay, but in fact there is no difference. It's better to do one cycle, one full cycle. It's better than to divide a cycle in 100 time step. There is no interest to do that. This morning also I spoke about the torque, the balance of the torque. It's possible to consider the misalignment here. Then you can see this is the same simulation. However, this time we do consider that the normal load is not centered at the center of the contact. You can have an offset, okay, and if there is no offset, you can oblige the normal load to be at the center. If you have an offset, you can see that the wear is not symmetrical. Okay, then you have to be careful with that. when you do the simulation. This is another parametric study. Here we investigate the effect of the load. Then again, this is the initial geometry. This is the wear profile after the same number of cycles, which is 200,000 cycles. Then you can see that the final shape is different depending on the load, and also the body separation. There is two directions: the X direction and the Y direction. Okay. When you have the tool after, you can play with the parameters to try to understand what happened, and there is no problem. Then now about the wear law, I don't remember what there is inside this slide. Okay, there is two different wear law depending on how you discretize the loading path, but okay, I will skip that because it's difficult to explain. Okay, these are the parameters. The friction coefficient is 0.7. Okay, this is more important. What we have seen before, it's okay. Here there is two different simulations. As I said this morning, you may impose a normal load, or you may impose a normal displacement at the bottom. Okay. For the these are the fretting loop. You can see versus time. Then the x-axis here, or the horizontal axis, is the time, or the number of cycles. Then you can see that for the top view, because the normal load is constant, even if there is some wear, the fretting loop is always the same. Then here I mean that if you are in gross slip, you will be always in gross slip. Okay. Here you have something where you impose the normal displacement, and due to wear, when you will, for example, you have 5 micrometers of normal displacement. When you will wear 5 micrometers, there is no more contact. This is why the tangential load diminish with the number of cycles. Okay, then this is a full simulation. I will show you there is many data in here. Okay, I will try to explain you what happened. Okay. These are the simulation. This is the initial pressure distribution. You can see the cylinder. You can see peak of pressure at the border. Okay. Also you can see the scale here. It's 2,000 megapascal. This is the final solution. You can see that the maximum contact pressure is 200 megapascal, 10 times slower than this one. Okay. Lower than this one. It is a little more complex, but anyway. And now here there is many different results. Here you will see the contact pressure times the friction coefficient, and it is plotted as a dashed line the shear stress. Then the shear stress should remain always below this curve and above the symmetric one. Okay. And you can see what I've plotted here. And because it is moving, because and we have at the beginning we have stick slip, partial slip, and at the end we have gross slip. Okay. Then here, this is the end. So now here it's a fretting loop. Then we start from this point, and we'll have something which is in partial slip. It's like a like a small ellipse with a corner at the end. And in gross slip, we'll have something like that. Then at the beginning, okay. Then here, this is the initial solution with the initial geometry, and in blue, this is the final solution. You can see that there is no difference. Okay, this is because we impose a normal load, which is the same from the beginning to the end. And another result here is the shear stress at the contact, which is with a dash line, then along the x direction. And because the cylinder is moving along the x direction, you can see that here you have a full sliding. Yes, here you have always full sliding, but at the beginning you may observe that you have partial sliding, then stick slip. Maybe I can try to stop. Okay. No, this one is not best. Okay, here. Okay, here is a full slip, and you can see here a difference between the pressure and here the just shear. Then in this situation you have stick slip, and in this part it is sticking. Okay, and for this picture, this is a normal pressure, and this corresponds to the displacement along the x direction due to the tangential force, which is here, I don't remember, it should be point, it's, yes, the tangential load is 0.7 times the normal load. Then it's a Qx equals 0.7. Okay. But it increases, in fact, from Qx vary between and as you remember, if you impose a load which is equal to that, the body will move at the infinite. Then to do the simulation, we did not do that. We just impose a tangential displacement. Okay, this way we are sure that the cylinder can move, does not go to the infinite. Okay, then this is the effect of the wear law. I will skip this one. Just a few detail, because the cylinder, in fact, you have always the same surface which is in contact with the plane. Then you wear always the same elements. For the plane, because this is the plane, you have a contact which is coming from here to here, and then at the end it can be from here to here. Okay, then in the middle of the contact, the middle will be always in contact. This is why here you have a flat surface. The slip is always the same, but at the border the slip diminishes to zero. Okay. And this is just a comparison with some experimental results. Okay, these are a nice comparison. It's an ideal case. For example, when we did experiments with VAMSHI, one of the key points, because they were using a test bench they had at GE, and it's a vertical machine with a cylinder, when the machine is vertical, it means that the movement is vertical. And one of the key to do that was to open the contact very often. For example, each 1000 cycles. So you open the contact, all the debris fall down, and you reinstall the contact. Then you can do a simulation and you can do an experiment without wear debris. Okay. When you maintain the wear debris in the contact, it can be different. Okay. And also we maybe they use some air to clean something like that. Yes. And after all, they did some tests with keeping in contact during all the tests. And when you have a stick slip, the debris remains inside. And that to make some measurement of the flow of debris for the modeling to take into account the effect of debris. But when you have the same material, you can see globally you have a good agreement. In fact, because we consider the wear coefficient coming from the experiment, it's normal to have the same integral. Okay, if you calculate the volume, normally for the experiment and for the simulations, you should have the same wear volume because the wear coefficient is coming from that. Now, if you don't know exactly the wear coefficient, it's not a problem, in fact. It can be 1, it can be 10, it can be 100. It means that, for example, if the wear coefficient is equal to 1, this is, and you have to make 1 million cycles, this is equivalent than a wear coefficient equal to 10, but with only 100,000 cycles. Okay? Just a rule like that. Then you don't have to know exactly the wear coefficient to perform a simulation and to see the trends. Just the scale in terms of number of cycles can be different. This is why this is how you can use the method, in fact. Then this is a simulation with partial slip. Then here we will stay always in partial slip. Then you can see that in the center of the contact, then here this is the geometry, which is first a cylinder here. And you can see that it remains a cylinder at the center because there is no sliding. No sliding means no wear, because it is sticking. And here you can see the wear depth for different conditions. Okay, here we impose a normal load. We impose a tangential displacement. Here we impose a normal displacement, which corresponds in fact to 400 Newton. And we still impose the same tangential displacement. Here we impose both a normal load and a tangential load, which is possible because we are in partial slip. Then there is no big movement. And here we impose a normal displacement and a tangential load. Okay, just to say that the wear is only localized at the border of the contact, like that.
Like we are doing the experiment in the simulation.
Yes.
What you put at which one will put at master and which one will be the slave actually? Both we are.
Okay, if you do field element simulation, first you will not have wear. Okay, but you can implement a wear model. It will be working in 2D. It's feasible. You can have some results. Now about slave and master surface. Usually, the master surface is the one which is the stiffer one, normally, and or the one with a finer mesh. This is what you have to do. This is explained in the book of Abacus. But here there is because you have two surfaces, and this is a total wear. In fact, now you have to share the wear on the two materials. Okay, then this is an assumption. If this is the same material, you can say that okay, the wear will be split in half on one body, half on the other one. If you have different materials, you have to go back to that and to see what is experimentally the difference, and you have two different wear coefficients, for example. And okay, this is the same. Another view. Okay, here you still have the pressure here, and all this curve correspond to the shear stress, then this correspond to this figure, in fact. But it is rounded because you have some wear, and you have no corner like that, okay, because there is some wear. This is for the first cycle, and this is after a large number of cycles. Then the pressure distribution is no more semi-elliptical. It's something with some peak like that. Okay. Then, as we discussed in the car, then the shear stress is always within the envelope. QX is always between the minimum and the maximum pressure. And because you can see here that Qx is lower than that, the pressure times the friction coefficient, it means that here it is sticking. If it is sticking, there is no wear. Then here, there is no wear. The wear is only localized at the origin, here, and then it grows to the center. Okay? And the same here, after a large number of cycles, it is always sticking in the center, and you have wear only at the border. Just to explain what I said at the beginning, which is that when you have the same friction coefficient, you remain in the same regime. If you are in stick-slip regime, you remain in the stick-slip regime always. And if you have a gross-slip regime, you will remain in the gross-slip regime. Then you do not have a change from gross-slip to partial slip, or the opposite, when you assume that you have the same when the friction coefficient is constant. Okay, this is the idea. This can be found numerically. Now, experimentally, we don't know because the friction coefficient is a very strange parameter that is today impossible to predict. You can just make an assumption about the value of this coefficient. Okay, this is what I said before. And after there is many other simulation. Okay. Okay, then this is what I wanted to show you. This is the basic of fretting wear. Now I would like to show you what happens when you have dissimilar elastic materials. For example, steel against aluminium, or aluminium against rubber. Okay, then this corresponds to the contact between a sphere and a flat surface when you have some torsion. Okay, and on the left you have the solution when you have the same materials, two steel. The steel is for both balls, and here when you have two different materials. Typically, this is such type of figure you can get. Then again the same as before, we have a constant normal load, and we have some oscillating movement in the tangential direction. Then you have a stick slip. This is a partial slip, and this is a gross slip. Everything is sliding. Okay. Then again we have swim modes. We discussed already that. Okay, we can apply in each direction either a torque or a load, or displacement, or rotation. Okay, the same type of equation, same technique, we discussed that before. Okay, now let's have a look to what happened for elastic similar materials and elastically dissimilar materials. Then the same simulation as before, as we have presented before. Okay. Now, if you have a look more closely at the sliding within the interface, you should have always the shear stress along the same direction as the sliding. This is the basic of the Coulomb law. Then it is always with the same direction, but it is opposite. Of course, when you have sliding, the shear stress is opposite to the sliding direction. In this situation, we have a ball sliding on a flat surface. It's difficult to see here, but okay, it's almost horizontal. Okay. In fact, there is some effect. It's not perfectly horizontal, but this is why we can neglect the displacement along the y direction. Okay. This is for when you have the same materials. They are identical, the same elastic properties. Now, if you have a look more closely on the value, you can see some angles that change slightly from point to point. Now, if we consider two materials that are very different, then you should have a Dunder's constant different from 0. Then for the first fretting mode, this is what we will have, depending on the friction coefficient. Then you can see that here, the friction loop, the fretting loop, is not the same depending on the material. Then for the first one, you have the same elastic materials. Then this is a black curve, and you keep the same friction coefficient, and you can see that one of the materials becomes stiffer than the other one. The slope is diminishing slightly, and there is a slight shift. When the friction coefficient is very high, this is less pronounced. And so you have the value of the Dunder's constant. You can see from 0 for similar elastic materials up to 0.2 for very different. 900 corresponds maybe to some diamond. Diamond is about 1040 megapascal of Young modulus. And 110 is between aluminium and steel. And now these are the results in terms of shear stress. Then you can see that okay, this is the Cataneo-Midlin solution, the one we have seen just before. And you can see here that the shear stress is very different when you have dissimilar elastic material. Okay? This is no more symmetric. It's very difficult to find that in the literature because there is almost no paper describing that. I submitted a paper with that many years ago, and I got a response from one of the reviewers. This is very well known. Then okay. I didn't try to resubmit it elsewhere. I submitted the paper in IGSS, but okay, it's too bad. But anyway, okay. This is the first thing. This is, you can see this is no more symmetric. This is along the x-axis. Of course, in the middle, there is some symmetry because this is a sphere on flat surface, and there is one plane of symmetry and one plane where there is no symmetry. This is the first result. The second one, which is very interesting, is the effect on the contact pressure. Okay? Until now, we assume that the contact pressure is given by the earth solution, including for EHL contact when it is vacated. You can see here that there is some effect. When you have friction, there is some effect on the pressure distribution. Okay? Then the pressure distribution is not fully independent on the friction coefficient, especially for elastically dissimilar materials. However, I think that nobody considers that. Now, when you do a finite element simulation, of course, implicitly you should consider that, but not with classical technique such as I have described before. And here are the result along the shear stress along the perpendicular directions. Then you have to be careful because this is only a noise. The value is at the power 10 to minus 6, which is numerically 0. Okay? But then, which means that the shear stress along the transverse direction is nil, equal to 0. And you know, when I said before that you can neglect, I will go back quickly. Okay, when I said that this is coupling number 1, or this one, you can neglect in fact this term because when you have the same material, it is negligible. Okay, and the proof of that is in this figure here. You can see that Qy equals 0. Then when you have the same materials, there is no transverse shear stress. Okay? But when you have some elastically dissimilar materials, the 2 points that are in contact are are not moving at the same way, then there is some micro sliding between them. Then difference between this one and the other one. Okay, now we just changed the friction coefficient. Before it was 0.3, now it's 0.9. Then okay, you have other type of results, but the trends remains the same. Okay. On the left, it is symmetric or anti-symmetric, and along the sliding direction, this is no more symmetric, either for the shear stress and for the pressure distribution. And however, the shear stress along the transverse direction here. In fact, there is a mistake here. There should be this is should be Q. Let me take. This is QY, sure. And on the right, yes, it's okay. This is yes, everything is okay. This is in the X plane, and this is in the Y plane. Okay, then it is correct. Okay, let's have a look on the effect of the Poisson ratio for the same situations. Then no coupling, but you have the same materials. Coupling, but you have the same materials. And coupling when you have different materials. Then you can see okay, the fretting loops are the same here and here, they are the same, but it's different when you have dissimilar materials. And these are typically, I don't know the name in English, yes, the streamline. This is the streamline, okay? Then on the left, we have a sphere on a flat. You move from the left to the right. You can see that all lines are horizontal because we neglect coupling between transverse shear stress and okay. And now this is a real solution. This is a correct solution. You have couplings, and you can see that there is a slight difference. This is why when you solve a contact problem with fretting for the same materials, you don't have to consider coupling. Okay, it can be interesting, but it's a very slight difference. And it's more complicated because you have to iterate between the normal contact problem and tangential one. It takes a long time. It takes more time than just normal and tangential without coupling. But when you have dissimilar materials, you should absolutely use a coupling. You should consider normal and tangential effect. Okay? And here, this is the beginning of the movement. Then after a while, if you are getting at a larger distance, you will have also again parallel lines. But this is at the early beginning. Okay? All these results are given in a paper in Ware, which is included in the documentation. Okay, so you can have a look, and the model is very well described if you want to compute it by yourself. All the equations are very well accurately described. And this is the mode 1. Now we have a look on the mode 2. The mode 2 is when you have a normal load, which is oscillating. Okay? When you have the same materials, there is no sliding, because all points, when they will touch, they will move together. You have only a streamline like that when you have dissimilar materials. And due to the symmetry, it's a radial problem. In fact, it's a 1D problem. You have something like that. Okay? And also something interesting is that at the beginning of the load, all the contact is sticking. I mean that here, at the beginning, the dark blue curve disk corresponds to the large disk, and it starts to shrink, because at the border it will start to slide. And after a given load, this one will almost disappear. Okay. And this has been studied by Spence. He gave the exact identical solution, or maybe not exact, approximate identical solution. And then you obtain that only when beta is different from 0, which is a Donders constant. And the Spence solution is given by what is within the red block here. I remember A is the contact radius, and C is radius of the sticking disk.
Is it
Okay. C is this one, and A is this one. Okay.
Stick, it means here actually means not the shared region and unshared region you're telling me, because anyhow all are in stick only.
In fact, in this domain, the shear stress equals the pressure times the coefficient of friction. And in this domain, the shear stress is lower than the pressure times the friction coefficient. This is that. Okay. And then there is an equation with k dash is a function of that, and which also depends on the load. And maybe next slide there is more details. Okay. This is you can plot that in a different way. Beta is the Dunder's constant. Here is the friction coefficient. Here is a sticking radius. Here is a contact radius. Okay. Then the span solutions is something like that. But there is some problem here because it tends to 0. Then there is something strange with the analytical solution of spans. I don't know what exactly, but for the numerical solution, it follows very well the span solution, except at the beginning, and I think we are correct, I would say, numerically, and we think that spans is wrong. But this is not the main important point. The main important point is another one. I go back to the finite element method. When you do a simulation, for example, as I said before, this morning, you need to start by some increments. If you have a nonlinear problem, and if you get the solution after a single increment, you are wrong. If you are correct, this is because you have a linear problem. Okay? And for example, Abacus, I didn't spend too much time for that, but when you solve for the step, when you solve the step, the type of analysis, he proposed to you something which is nonlinear, by defect, okay, by default. And but for the increment, he proposes you an increment of 1. Because a lot of engineers, they use the software without knowing what they do, and they do a linear analysis with a nonlinear model. And to be efficient, Abacus decided that, okay, the majority of people are doing that, then I will put an increment of 1, they will do calculation in 1 step, they will have the good solution, and that's it. Okay? But when it is nonlinear, you should have absolutely the first increment which is small. Or at least you should have 5, 6 steps, increments in your solution. And we have the same problem with the contact model. Here, this is a solution if you don't care about that. If we apply the load in 1 increment, we will have this solution. Okay? And the correct solution is this one. This is the span solution, in fact. But this is nonlinear. And okay, you have to be careful with that. Then the contact problem is nonlinear, and when you have friction, it's more complicated. You have to be very careful with that. Okay. And the third mode is fretting mode Swiss, and it's only torsion like that. Then the same. And we will see the same picture as the first one in the front page. Then the same materials without coupling, the same material with coupling, and different materials with coupling. Okay. Then this is the solution. Then it exists in the literature solution given by Lupkins, published in Journal of Applied Mechanics long time ago. This is the correct solution with elliptical integrals. This is in the sliding area, and this is in the sticking area. Okay, this is the solution, then plotted here. And with the cross and the circle, you have the numerical solution with a very good agreement. In fact, there is no difference if you consider coupling or not. As I said before, there is no coupling here because the points are moving almost together. And here, this is the solution when you have elastically dissimilar metals, which is very, very different. Okay. And now if you observe the streamline for sliding, you will have that. Then this is the first picture, then you can see how points in contact are moving. They are not following each other. Okay, then this is what I wanted to show you about that. And now I would like to... Do you have a question about that? No. And maybe now I would like to show you some simulation of wear with coatings, and maybe also when there is an inclusion, something like that. Then everything is a little more complicated, but I think that now you have all the background to understand what I will show you. Let me check which one I should. This one. Okay, now we will consider coated surfaces. Then okay, the same problem, which is in fact the principal problems. Then what we want to avoid is a failure of the blade and of the disc. The disc too. Okay, the same type of solicitation. And okay, when you have some crack, okay, you can destroy either the disc or the blade, and we want to avoid that. This is a topic of that. Okay, this is an example. Okay, you can find many pictures of that. Okay, then there is other objective, other goals, but I will skip this one due to environmental issue. Okay, I skip everything. Okay, then now you know that we have some numerical tools to study all these problems. The same, I will skip everything. I already spoke about that. Okay, then you can consider different type of inclusions that are plasticity or that are heterogeneities based on the same. Okay, let's for the elastic contact we already work on that. Everything okay. Maybe a few things about how to solve numerically the contact problem. You can improve the algorithm, for example, using relaxation coefficient, which can be varying versus steps, and sometimes when the solution does not converge or oscillate around something, you can use a relaxation that varies depending on your conditions. And here there is no relaxation, and after a while, you know, we use techniques such as Newton-Raphson or conjugate gradient method. Then you calculate the solution at time step t plus 1, depending on solution at time step t. Then you can add delta something or relax times delta something. You can diminish, in fact, the correction you have to make to the solution. Then when you do that, in fact, it's possible to accelerate the convergence when you have a relaxation coefficient that varies with time, depending on some parameters. Then it is more stable, it is more accurate, and it decreases overall computing time. Okay, I skip this one, it's not very important. Okay, for the elastic contact, we have seen that before. The same. Maybe there is an example here. Okay, we didn't see that, but you can do also fretting wear with plasticity. Then this is the same as before, with the same type of equation, Dunder's constant, the relation due to Spence to calculate the relationship between the friction coefficient over beta and between the ratio between the sticking radius to the total contact area. Also this is the maximum pressure. The maximum pressure is lower than 1 because here, if it is 1 here, of course this one is lower than 1, for example 0.8. Okay, this is normal. Then the maximum is always lower than 1. And with that we can perform the same type of simulation. Then when you consider plasticity, then this is the elastic solution, this is the elastic plastic solution. We can perform the same type of simulation considering plasticity. Then here this is a stress field for the no friction coefficient. And when you increase the friction coefficient and when you do consider plasticity, you modify the shear stress profile, and also you move on the curve rolling the Spence constant to the contact dimension. Okay, then just to show you that when you have the tool, you can investigate whatever you want. Okay, but this is not maybe the most important. Then we can do that for stick slip. This is the mode 2. Then when you have a variation of the normal load. Okay. No, now I would like to go to the effect of coating. Then the same as before. Then we use the HLB techniques, as I presented before. Why do we use that? This is because when you wear the coating is non-uniform. Okay, it exists in the literature a solution when the coating has a uniform thickness. I will show you that. Okay, this is a validation. I can skip this one too. Okay, this is with the presence of an inclusion. There is a small inclusion, a big inclusion below the surface, and that will perturbate the pressure distribution on the left, and also the shear stress distribution, which is different from what this is on the blackboard. And maybe okay, this is with different friction coefficient. Okay, you can see here the inclusion, for example. Okay, here this is a big inclusions, which is discretized in several small inclusions. Okay, but this is not what I wanted to show you. Now about coated surfaces. Then the same. This is the reference picture. Then this is taken from a paper from O'Sullivan in 1988. This is interesting to discuss that quickly. Then you have here in the O'Sullivan paper, they consider a coating for which the thickness equals the contact radius. Okay, then here you can see the thickness, h, in the reference solution, the numerical reference solution, h equals to a. Okay, which is then the Hertzian depth is this is for a sphere. The Hertzian depth is about half the contact radius, and it's about here. Okay. And then we will make varying the Young modulus of each of the coating and of the substrate. Then you can see here, this is the solution when you have no coating. Then the maximum contact pressure is equal to 1, the solution without coating. When you have a very hard coating, for example, this one here corresponds to a coating which is 4 times stiffer than the substrate. In fact, you increase the maximum contact pressure, which is normal, in fact, because Yes, it's the same if you simulate the contact pressure for two different materials. Higher is the Young modulus, smaller is the contact area, and higher is the pressure. Okay, then you can find that here. And below, you have the same solution when the coating is softer. Then you decrease the maximum contact pressure, and the contact is larger. And this is another view, but this time in terms of stress. Then you can see each time the coating thickness here. You have the boundary. We assume perfect bonding between the coating and the boundary. And also you have the effect of the friction coefficient. Okay, then this is the friction coefficient. On the left you have the frictionless contact with a soft coating, no coating, and hard coating. What you can observe is that when you have a hard coating, the stress is localized within the coating. Yes, at the surface or within the coating. And when you have a soft coating, the stress propagates within the substrate. In this configuration. Now, what is the optimum thickness for the coating? I don't know if you already think about that.
It should be more than the depth of the maximum contact pressure that happens in the substrate.
This is one solution. Because here I can see that there is a lot of discontinuities. And if you calculate here, for example, of course, if you calculate the tensile stress, it should be compressive. Because you have a contact, okay? Then it should be compressive, and especially because this is a normal stress. However, the shear stress should be very important. And then you may have some decohesion, or some crack that initiated that. Then, of course, you may have a very, very thick coating. But in fact, I will say that there is two optimum for the coating. The first one is when you have a gradient material. I mean with no coating, just you have some properties that are varying with depth. This is what you can do when you have a heat treatment, such as nitriding or cementing material. Then you will have something which is harder at the surface, and progressively it will be softer. But there is no interface, then there is no risk of decohesion. For me, this is the best solution, instead of a very thick coating, even a huge coating. And the second solution is to have a very, very thin coating, very, very thin. Because it will act, for example, on the friction, on the boundary lubrication, when you have contact between asperities. And because it is very, very thin, it is not detrimental for that. Less than 1 micrometer, typically.
Not micrometer. With respect to uncoated, when we have uncoated one, we are applying the load at particular depth, like 0.3, the maximum
Stress?
is there, stress is there.
Yes.
So how much compared to that, like 0.1 at 0.1 or 0.1 of that value, or like some value we should decide, because it will depend on.
Is there a relation with the contacts area, or is there in general rule that it should be less than 1 micron? Is there a dimension relation?
No, okay, okay, I cannot respond accurately because I didn't check that accurately. But okay, you can perform the simulation. You can check the effect of the coating stiffness on the contact size and on the maximum stress and so on. But
So like here you are seeing at 0.5 the maximum pressure is happening.
yes,
So for this particular material, will you decide that should have a thickness of around at 0.1 of that Z by A value? That thickness is
I don't understand what you mean.
0.5 is the
0.5 means that the
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Young modulus
Yeah.
of the coating. This is the Young modulus of the coating. Is 2 times. It's half of the Young modulus of the substrate. This is not the thickness of the coating. The coating here has the same. The thickness of the coating is A, is the contact radius. Yes, because maybe I can give you 2 examples. When I was working in a company, that's some problem with bearings, and somebody came the company to try to sell a chromium layer. He said, okay, you have some problem, no problem, I can add a chromium layer of maybe 500 micrometers, it will be very good and so on. In fact, you will have that. And if you start to crack the interface, all the layer will be removed and it will be catastrophic for the bearing. Okay? Another example is that, I don't know if they still exist, but in the US there is a company, they propose to repair bearings for aerospace application. Then they do not sell their solution to big companies, but maybe some small companies use their service, and they propose to, in fact, to machine an old bearing to remove, for example, 1 millimeter, and they add some new materials to refill the bearing. So it will have the same size as before, and you can remount the bearing on the main shaft of the engine. I will not fly on such type of aircraft, but okay, and they do that in fact. Okay. Okay, then this is what I wanted to show you, a few examples, and okay, I have many other videos, but I don't know, but okay. I don't know if you would like to ask some question or to see something else, just an overview of fretting wear. There is no crack here, you can see. What I have presented, if you are a user of the finite element method, mostly with Abaqus, you can do most of that, but for 2D problem. Okay. Now for the axisymmetric problem, a sphere on a flat surface, if you want to have some rotation, I'm not sure that you can work, but it should be possible to work. Okay, so it's something which is okay, no, but okay. In 2D, you can try to perform some type of simulation, and because you have now the analytical solutions from Spence, from Lubkins, for example, from Midlin Cataneo, which is in the Johnson book. Everything is in the Johnson book. Maybe the first stage will be to do to calculate the numerical solution, the analytical solution, and to compare with to have a first idea of what you should obtain with the finite element method. I think this is a way to do something. It's always to have an idea of what you are looking for, and then to do analytical analysis, and then you can do the finite element model, and you can compare to. Because if you have no idea of what you are looking for, the reliability of your results will be very low. Because there is many problems due to the type of element you use, the type of the mesh size, the boundary conditions, and
Professor, you in the morning mentioned that if you are in the partial or the mixed slip regime, it starts initially with stick slip and then transitions to cross slip. But that is only in the case when you are having a lubricating oxide layer that reduces the friction. But what if you have surface inclusions, those are coming out as separations that stick into that? Will that be the same case? Because in that case, will the coefficient of friction, like the friction won't change, right? Will it then slide to cross slip regime? If you have the inclusions that are coming out as abrasives on the top surface in such conditions.
okay, in fact, I didn't say that exactly, but
Like, what is the reason that the friction is coming in?
yes. In fact, when you have fretting wear,
Fitting it?
it means basically that you have no lubricant. Okay, because the lubricant flow away, and after a while there is no lubricant.
Yeah.
You have only oxide. You have additives that remains in the contact. It will be a layer of a few nanometers. It's very common. You can make analysis of the chemical composition of this layer. You will see what you have, and then you can know which type of additives you add. However, when I spoke about wind turbine blades or turbo propeller blades. In fact, there is oscillation like that, but everything is within a chamber which is filled of oil. Then there is always some oil at the boundary of the contact, and then there is some additives always coming into the contact. But usually fretting is associated to dry contact. Then you have then two type of materials. First, you have oxide, especially if you have some humidity, some moisture, and if you have oxygen, then you will have some oxidation. And what you can observe is that oxidation occurs mostly in the sliding area, because when the sticking area remains closed, and in the sticking area there is usually no oxidation because there is no oxygen coming into the contact. Then oxidation is only limited to the border, and then oxidation will modify the friction coefficient. And usually it should diminish the friction coefficient. Because when you have, for example, when you have the same metal, by affinity, they stick each other, when they are very, very clean. But when you start to oxide the surface, the affinity will decrease and the friction coefficient will be lower. Then oxidation plays a very important role. And the second one is debris. Because debris, you can see that as small balls, and they will roll between the two surfaces. And also this one diminishes the friction coefficient very, very significantly.
Displacement amplitude also
Ye-
play a major role
Yes, yes,
oxidation.
for oxidation and also for debris formation. Because, for example, when I speak about gross slip, there is two types of gross slip. I will show you. For one type, debris will move away, and for the other type, debris will remain within the contact. Okay. For example, if this one is the initial position, and if this one is a final position, okay, debris will be trapped here, and they will remain. Okay. If now you have, then usually in the fretting community, when we speak about gross slip, this is this type of sliding. This is not stick slip, this is gross slip, but this is not a huge slip. Then this is what we call gross slip. And when this is the initial position and this one is the final one, debris are moving away. Okay? They will be pushed here and here, because you move from here to here. Okay? And usually for that, they call that reciprocal sliding. This is not really fretting, but you can use the same wear model. Okay. Then here, the debris matter a lot. You have to be careful. I don't know if I will find it. you have other questions or problem you want to point? Okay, then tomorrow I would like to speak about three things. The first one, I will speak about tractive rolling contact, and typically the contact between a tire and the road. When you have sliding, then it can be acceleration, it can be braking, it can be when you turn around a turnabout. All these things, centrifugal force, and the application is on truck tires, but anyway, it's just to see, and you know, for the tractive rolling contact, if you put the pressure distribution here, if you know Calcare solution, the book of Calcare and the contact software, then the shear stress, then this is still the pressure times the friction coefficient, and you have something like that with one area which is this is Q this times. This is mu P. Maybe this is better. It's like that. Okay. This is typically the geometry, the shape of the shear stress. Okay. And of course, you can have in the opposite, when you have acceleration or when you have a deceleration, you have an envelope, and the shear stress will be always within that. Okay. So I will speak about that. Then I will present you what we can do on viscoelastic model, and the viscosity will dissipate energy. Then, as for elastic plastic body, there is a resisting torque because there is some dissipation. If you have no friction, if you are purely elastic, there is no dissipation. It's very easy to move something, to have a ball rolling. Then the second talk will be on viscoelastic properties, materials, and typically the same is for rubber, it's for the tire on road application. And for the last talk, I will present you something that I will also give sometimes as a keynote talk. It will be a complete view of what happened, starting from a debris in oil. This is related to a crash of an helicopter in Norway 8 years ago. It was a failure of the main gearbox, and the rotor separated from the sail of the helicopter. Then everybody died in the crash, and the company was asked to make some effort to solve the problem. And we have been working for them for several years to develop some tools. Then I will show you how it works from a debris moving in the oil, coming into the contact within a bearing, and then denting the surface. And we were able to predict that. We were able to predict the crack propagation, and to explain why after a given time the crack bifurcate, branch in the opposite direction, broken in two parts. The gearbox, the gear was broken in two parts, and because the gear broken in the main gearbox, the gearbox exploded in many parts. And then I know now you have all the background to understand what I will present, and then because we use this type of techniques, which is semi-analytical, which means this is very fast, they were able to do parametric studies to investigate the effect of residual stresses, the effect of the pressure, of many things, in order to have some design rules to avoid that. Okay, then this is what I would like to show you tomorrow. And maybe if we have time, I will see with Kesavan if we have time, and or maybe it can be Friday. I would like maybe to continue on the finite element model, just to try to do some fretting simulation. But we will see how it will work until the end of the week. Okay. Then maybe if you have no other question, maybe you can make a break. And I am here if you have any question you would like to ask me.